Hello, thank you for joining us today. We are thrilled you're here. I hope that you received our email or my email that really just wanted to say thank you for joining us today and being a part of this. This is our first dental therapy webinar, national webinar for sure. So we'll give everybody a few minutes to join. We had record numbers for our first attendance of this, and we are just couldn't be more excited or appreciative that you're here. So I am your host for today. I am Shana Overfelt, School Programs Director for CDCA Rev CETA. Dr. Wall, can I pass over to you for a quick introduction of yourself?
Sure. I'm Ben Wall. I am the Director of Examinations for CDCA Rev CETA. General dentist by education, and I've had experience as a dental educator, working in community health centers as a dentist as well, and just really excited to be part of this webinar and to help answer some questions that you may have. Hopefully present some useful information, and we do want this to be interactive, and we want you to make sure you get out of this what you need. So just happy to be here and happy to be part of this. So thanks for taking some time with us today.
Sharon, you're up. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes, I'm the Director of Exam Quality and Statistics. I'm a psychometrician, and I've actually worked in the dental testing industry for over 12 years, going on 13 years. So I'm happy to be here, show some data.
Sharon loves data, by the way. She is our data guru. And also on cue today is Christy Joe. Christy Joe, you want to take a minute and say hello?
Hello, everyone. My name is Christy Joe Fogarty, and I am an advanced dental therapist and licensed dental hygienist out of Minnesota. I was actually the first one to get credentialed as an advanced dental therapist in Minnesota, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how it's going up here.
Well, we are excited. I'm going to give everybody just a few more minutes to enter the room. Again, we thank you for being here. We are so excited to be covering this topic. As Christy Joe knows, and conversations we've had, this is really kind of we're at the starting point in some of these elements, and some of these elements we're hoping that together, maybe we come up with a path that gives dental therapy an option in the 14 states that it's currently accepted. So we are going to be monitoring the chat today. Also, very much allowed is raising your hand and asking questions. While Dr. Wall, myself, and Sharon may not all have the answers, there are people on this call who are experts within this field. Christy Joe is our special guest that we'd asked to be here. Those at the University of Minnesota on the call are also here. So if we don't know the answers, there is an answer within this group of people. So please feel free to ask your questions and we will move through those. So again, we just introduced ourselves. You have myself, Dr. Wall, Sharon, and Christy Joe as our special guest presenting today. Christy Joe is our resident expert on dental therapy, and we are so happy she's here. I do want to quickly thank the University of Minnesota. This meeting was at their request. Their educators wanted to have a meeting that really focused on dental therapy. We took their idea and grew it just a little bit to include those states, all states actually, to participate today, and educational programs that have that opportunity to maybe consider or are developing dental therapy programs within your school. So again, lots of experts on the call. You just happen to have the 4 of our friendly faces up here presenting to you today. That doesn't mean those of you who may be on the call, Bridget, Danae, that I will not be calling on you to answer any questions. So Jeff Allen, I saw you joined. Everybody should be on alert that you could be called on today to answer a question. The last thing I will say, again, chat's being watched. You can raise your hands if you want to ask a question verbally, but also it is nice when we are giving these presentations that if your camera is on, if you're in a location where you feel comfortable to turn that camera on, we would appreciate it. The feedback, the nonverbal language we get as we look at faces is extremely helpful. So please feel free, as I encourage students as well, to turn on those cameras so you guys are getting that same encouragement. Christy Joe, you've built the beginning of this presentation for us. Can you walk us through kind of a national review of what we're seeing as far as dental therapy goes?
I can. And Shayna, thanks for asking me to do it. And honestly, you're not wrong. There's probably 5, 6, 7, 8 other people on this call who can handle this, probably even better than I can. So if I make any mistakes or do anything, I'm sure they'll be happy to jump in and correct me and catch me up to date if I'm behind on anything. But dental therapy nationally is growing. It's exciting. I think for me, one of the most exciting things is that Wisconsin finally came on board just a few weeks ago. Super excited about that. So as you look at this map, you can see kind of little clusters starting, right? So as Michigan passed it, I was working with Wisconsin, as were many, many dental therapists, and Matt Crispine, really to squeeze Wisconsin like it's time. You guys have been sitting there and watching it, and they finally pulled the trigger, got it done this year. So I'm really excited, really proud of Wisconsin. And you can also see that Pacific Northwest, they're really starting to grow. They got a program out there now. And then a little bit in the South, but we always have to give a big hat tip to Alaska, who got us all started in dental therapy. So I'm always really excited when I see I get a chance to talk about dental therapy, to give a shout out to Alaska for getting this all started in the United States. Of course, Minnesota, we're very proud that we took off and ran with it, and we have quite a few schools. But as you can see, there's 14 states now that accept some form of dental therapy and allow dental therapists to practice in some way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, if we go to that next slide there, there's not a lot of places that educate and don't have a lot of practitioners in a lot of states yet. Maine has one practitioner, but really only 5 or 6 of these states, of the 14 states, actually have practitioners. And a lot of that has to do with the educational programs that exist in the country right now. There are not nearly enough of them. We quite frankly cannot graduate dental therapists fast enough. The demand for them is growing faster than we can produce them. And as a result, we'll see a lot of those programs that are in other states probably starting to educate people who are not from their state. So portability is going to become incredibly, incredibly important. So currently, as it stands, there are 3 programs in Minnesota, and I say 3 with a question mark. The first one is Metropolitan State University. It was the first program in the state. And they only accept people who have a bachelor's of science in dental hygiene. And then it is a 2-year program to the master's degree in advanced dental therapy. That program is currently suspended. We're being told that it's going to start back up in the summer of 2025, but I think that it's a little questionable exactly what's happening with that program. As an alum of there, I'm very, very optimistic that they will restart that program and start accepting students again. But that one is a little bit in question right now. The second program is the University of Minnesota's, which is a fantastic dual program. You go into that program, you come out as a licensed dental hygienist with a bachelor's degree and, of course, a master's degree as in advanced dental therapy. And that program is the one and only in the state of Minnesota so far that is CODA approved. So we're very, very proud of that program. And the third program is a newer program. It's at Minnesota State University. And again, so exciting. It's in Mankato, Minnesota, which is in Greater Minnesota. So for us, we are so excited to have a Greater Minnesota program. Really adds to the number of people who can serve those communities, which are greatly underserved. And it kind of blends the bachelor's of dental hygiene requirement to get in, and also kind of a dual program. So they save half of their seats for people who are existing hygienists who have that bachelor's in dental hygiene. And then the other half they take from their dental hygiene program for those who'd like to continue on in continuing their education and become dental therapists. And they kind of blend that together. So they've kind of taken a blend of those 2 programs. And then, of course, we have the very first program that was up in Alaska, and the very first program that was CODA approved, CODA accredited. So really excited for Alaska. They really worked hard for that. And the people up there have been working tirelessly on dental therapy and ensuring that those most underserved communities get access to dental care. And it's really been amazing for them. They have over 40,000 people who now get access to dental care who've not done that before. And then the last school to join our very short list of dental therapy education programs is Washington. And I had the honor of going out and visiting the Swinomish tribe and seeing firsthand how dental therapy was working in their tribal lands. And they were really the catalyst for getting this program up and working. And I think we're going to see a lot of people from around the country flocking to these programs to get educated, to go back to their states. So, like I said, a lot of our dental therapists are going to be trained in other states. Like I said, Maine, they were the second state to allow dental therapy via legislation. Obviously, Alaska was the very first, and Minnesota was the first through legislation, but Maine was the second. And despite that legislation originally passing in 2014, of course, that legislation has gone through many modifications over the years. It did not get its first practitioner to start practicing until March of 2021. And that practitioner actually came from Minnesota. And one of the things that they're really struggling with is the fact that they don't have any educational programs at all on the East Coast. They're currently doing a feasibility study, and it's due to the state legislature there in November of this year. So hopefully Maine University will be starting a program in the next several years, but any of those of you who are on this call who knows how education works, it could still take a while to get that program up and going. But I'm very optimistic that that feasibility study will come back and show that there's a great need for this type of education on the East Coast, since there are several states on the East Coast that already have legislation passed, but no practitioners.
Christy Joe, do you think that what is the delay in such a long time span? Is it getting a program up and running?
My understanding was that Vermont, which that tri-state area all works real closely together, actually had a program that was about ready to launch. Unfortunately, they were looking to launch it in the fall of 2020, right? So COVID just got all muckety mucked up. And while they were figuring out all their COVID, a lot of people backed out. So that was my understanding of what happened there. So Maine University wasn't looking at it because it looked as if someone was going to start a program. I think also in Maine, they've gone through many different pieces of legislation, adopting and adjusting their, so it gets harder also for educational people to know what to set up for when the legislature is constantly changing the rules and everything. So I think that that's been the holdup. Obviously, there's always politics that play into it, which I won't get into on this call.
Sure.
Yeah, but I know Michigan also came up with some grant funding, and they intend to send 2 students from Michigan, 2 hygienists, to get educated to become dental therapists, and they're sending them to 2 different states and 2 different programs. So we are going to continue to see that flow. I don't know how many openings they're going to continue to keep for outstate, right? Because all these people would love to have all these dental therapists as they graduate to work in their backyard. But I think you're going to continue to see that. And because many DTs will be educated in states they might not attend, so as we talked about, that portability is going to be so important. So one of the most common requirements you're going to see in the legislation as it's passed in all these states is the requirement to have attended a CODA accredited program. So right currently there's only 3. The state of Minnesota, the 2 programs that are not CODA accredited are accredited by the Minnesota Board of Dentistry. Some legislations will make a nod to that to say that it has to be a CODA accredited school or equivalent, but not all of them do. So that CODA accreditation is pretty important. But once they finish doing the legislation piece and coming up with the scope of practice and coming up with what it needs to have for degrees, sometimes they don't even say degrees, they just say specific types of training that you have to have. Then they kind of hand it off to their boards of dentistry. And they kind of have them implement what are the rules going to be and how are they going to implement taking these practitioners in and licensing them. And one of the most common requirements you're going to see in these rules from the boards of dentistry is the passage of a third-party clinical exam, often a written exam as well, which CDCA is offering in the form of an OSCE. And then also ensuring that those sorry, lost my train of thought there for a second. Ensuring that those students have that CODA accredited school and pass that third-party clinical exam is what's really critical for portability, right? So all of these students can go to any one of these educational programs. They can get their degree. They can, from a CODA accredited school, and then they take their third-party exam, and they can go back to their state and then go through their rules and whatever they have to have in order to gain licensure in that state. So as you can see here, CDCA Reb CETA has dental portability almost nationwide. We're getting close, right? Really close.
We're really close.
I mean, I am such a huge proponent of portability, especially in today's world, right? Like anyone can work from anywhere. So who knows what our spouses, our friends, our family, who they're going to live. Like I always thought I'd for sure just live in Minnesota forever. And then my husband suddenly retired unexpectedly, and he now has a new job where he can work anywhere. And he's like, do we want to live where it's 20 below? Thankfully, this was kind of a warm winter for us, but it starts to make me wonder, will I someday work in another state, and will I someday need that portability? And dental hygiene has even greater portability.
And you have 14 choices right now for dental therapy.
I do. Unfortunately, none of them are in the state I'd like to move to just yet, but we'll see.
Yes.
But dental hygiene has incredible portability as well. And of course, CDCA RebCEDA uses the ADEX exam. There is no ADEX exam yet for dental therapy, but we are building that portability, and they do use the same type of criteria and regiment that they use with those ADEX exams into that dental therapy portability. And I got to say, I'm really proud to have worked with Stuart Blumenthal on getting that OSCE exam as part of it. It was really important to me. It was really important as they built it, and I was really happy to have worked with him on that.
Yes.
So
that is a great nod to Dr. Blumenthal. For those of you who don't know Dr. Blumenthal, he worked very closely with Christy Joe and the Minnesota board on the dental therapy examination that CDCA Reb administers. Dr. Blumenthal did pass away in November of 2023, so we miss him dearly. We're trying in his honor to pick up these pieces and really bring this together so that all the effort and the work is now taken to a national effort so that we can bring this to additional states that are looking for portability. Christy Joe, your wealth of knowledge is impeccable always. The one question that kind of came through the chat is this meeting being recorded so that we can show it to our state boards? And indeed, I want to answer for everybody, yes, this meeting is being recorded, and we will provide it post-meeting wrap-up so that you can share this with your state dental boards. Christy Joe is going to remain on the call. Do we have you for the full hour, Christy Joe? I know you got to get back to patients.
You will have me for the full hour.
Okay, perfect. So any questions that you may have, please direct them in the chat, or feel free again to raise your hand and we can call on everybody. There is no timeline here or appropriate time to ask a question. Anytime is the appropriate time. Dr. Wall, I am going to turn to you now. We're going to break down the elements and content, scoring, and criteria of this exam.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Again, great to be here. We're going to talk about different elements of the exam, the content, and the criteria a little bit. All of this is published as well on our website, so you can get more detailed information about the specific criteria there, but we'll just kind of go as a little bit of an overview here, and then if you have questions, please let us know. The dental therapy exam is broken up into 6 parts that are divided into 3 different sections, and we'll talk about each of these parts individually, but there is an OSCE that was alluded to earlier. Then there's a pediatric examination, and that exam is given on an exam day, and then there's a restorative examination that has 2 different procedures, and they're given on a separate day as well. We do also, as you saw before, many of the candidates that we administer this exam to have dual degrees, right? And they also take the dental hygiene licensure examination, which is an ADEX examination. So that's put in conjunction with the dental therapy exam. And as this field grows, then that's something that we can look at having a specific dental therapy component that includes the elements that are needed to meet the needs of state dental boards. So we're going to talk a little bit about examination updates and criteria. One thing, as far as the restorative exam, we'll talk a little bit about some of the updates of the restorative exam. This examination is given in conjunction with the ADEX dental examination. So the restorative exam is the exact same as any dental candidate who's performing these same procedures. We felt that it was very important that anybody performing these procedures be held to the same standard. And so what we've seen, and we'll talk about how the performance has been excellent over the years from dental therapy candidates taking the ADEX dental restorative examination part. So as the dental examination is updated by ADEX, we do carry that over into the dental therapy exam as well. So we're going to talk about some of the updates to the dental restorative exam that is also part of the dental therapy exam. So one of those updates was a change in criteria wording that really was a good terminology change because it kind of brought up some questions and some confusion. There was terminology about outline extension for the anterior restoration that was allowed to go beyond what is necessary for complete removal of caries up to a certain amount. So it just was kind of a confusing wording that worked more for a patient-based exam and not as clearly for a competent or simulated patient exam. So that wording was removed. So as you look at the 2024 criteria sheets, that wording has just been removed from the anterior preparation outline extension criteria. Another change is some differences with the timing of the exam. Just to clarify the rule for 2 procedures in 7 hours. So basically, we defined more clearly what it means to have a procedure completed within 7 hours. So and if you're doing 2 restorative procedures on the same day, which everybody taking the exam for the first time is completing 2 procedures, both procedures must be completed within 7 hours. So the exam starts at 8. So by 3 o'clock, that second restorative procedure means the restoration needs to be in place at the end of that 7-hour exam. So at 3 o'clock, they need to have a restoration that can be submitted for grading. If for some reason they don't have a restoration in place, there's no restoration that can be graded, so they did not complete 2 procedures. In that case, having only completed 1 procedure, they do look at the timing, how long it took to complete that 1 procedure. So basically, they started 2. If the first one was done within 3.5 hours, that one can still be considered a pass of the exam. But if they took, say, 5 or 6 hours to do one and didn't complete the second, it would be reported as a failure for both those procedures. This is not something we've run into in the dental therapy exam, but just wanted to make sure everybody's aware, just so everybody's on the same page as far as what the timing is for that exam day. One of the updates, the competent tooth is the tooth that is proprietary to CDCA RebCeda that we use for the ADEX exam that was developed. And we continually look at enhancing that product and making sure that it's consistent with natural tooth anatomy. And one adjustment that was made between 2023 and 2024 was an adjustment to the pulpal anatomy and pulp position, just to make sure everything's in line with natural dentition. So that was one of the enhancements for 2024.
And Ben, I'm going to reiterate too that these are the same enhancements that happened on the dental side of this examination.
Yes, absolutely. For the ADEX dental exam, these updates that we're talking about are for both the ADEX dental exam and also the dental therapy exam. And really, the reason we need to keep everything consistent, one of the reasons is we give this exam at the same time. So dental candidates are tested right alongside dental therapy candidates, and the graders don't know which is which. They don't know who's a dental therapy candidate and who's a dental candidate, so which really speaks very highly of the results that we're going to be presenting a little bit later. One other thing that's a change from 2023 to 2024 is that if you're aware of how the exam has been run in previous years, usually when a candidate was unsuccessful in the preparation, there would be a conversation between the chief and that candidate in a private area to terminate the exam, and they would not be allowed to continue with the examination. That really was a carryover from a patient-based exam where patient protection was key and very, very important. We couldn't allow a restoration to be placed on a patient when the preparation was not to an acceptable level. So we had to stop everything and allow for proper management of the patient care. In a type-it-on exam and a simulated patient exam, obviously we're not concerned about patient protection of that type-it-on, obviously. So there's no need to have that conversation during the exam. So basically everybody will perform both a prep and a restoration on both procedures. So that's something that is updated for 2024. So those are the updates. We'll talk now about each part specifically. We'll begin with the dental therapy OSCE examination, which is taken on a computer or could be on a tablet. Generally, these are taken in a prometric testing center. And this is, it's a 100-point multiple choice exam that's been developed by subject matter experts and reviewed to be in line with CODA accreditation requirements and so on and so forth. So this just gives you an idea of the different elements that are included in that exam, meant to be a comprehensive way of evaluating things that go beyond the hand skills part of the exam to really get a good idea of a candidate's clinical judgment, their ability to make clinical assessments, clinical decisions, treatment planning, and be able to make decisions about patient care and get the best possible patient outcomes. Moving on to the pediatric simulated patient examination. There are 3 different parts of this exam taken on that day. And you see here the breakdown of how much time for each part. And the stainless steel crown preparation, they actually perform 2 preparations, one on tooth L and one on tooth J. And then they actually place and cement a stainless steel crown on tooth J. So it's 2 different procedures for the stainless steel crown preparation, which is why there's more time allowed for that component. And then the restoration of an amalgam restoration is a pre-prepared tooth where they place an MOD amalgam restoration, and then there's a pulpotomy on the endodontic tooth that's of tooth A. Each one has specific criteria that are evaluated, broken up into different criteria categories. So a very systematic evaluation based on categories. And so every candidate is evaluated in a consistent and uniform way from exam to exam. So we're really looking for a uniform, universal, national standard for something that no matter where a candidate is educated, this gives state boards an opportunity to understand that everybody's performed to this expected level. So you've got different components that are evaluated for each procedure. You look at, this, and these criteria groups are very similar to what you would see on the ADEX restorative exam and other components of the exam. We really wanted to mirror that way of giving candidates an idea of what is expected. Every criteria is clearly outlined and clearly defined so that candidates can self-evaluate the same way that the examiners evaluate them.
Dr. Wall, I do have a question in the chat really quick, which I think is a great question. Do dental students perform pulpotomy and stainless steel crowns for their board exams?
No, the pediatric simulated patient is specific to the dental therapy exam. The dental candidates have a separate endodontic and prosthodontic examination that they take that is specific to the ADEX dental exam. So this exam section, this pediatric simulated patient examination section was developed specifically for the dental therapy licensure.
Christy Joe, did you want to add something?
No, I'm good.
Okay. You leaned in. You were leaning in at me like,
I know. It's
got
like
something good.
No, wait. No. He covered
Coming
it.
with something good. Amy,
No, I just think they did a great job of trying to mirror what our dental counterparts have to do, right? But very tailored to what dental therapy does in scope of practice. They just did such a great job of mirroring that. So,
thank you. Perfect. Yeah, that was the purpose of it. Yeah.
Thanks, Amy, for the question. That's it right now, Dr. Wall. You can keep going. Okay,
great. So yeah, we look at all the different components, all the different criteria. Here you see the stainless steel crown preparation. We do look at, the cervical margins, the walls and taper, treatment management. For every single one of these procedures, we do look at adjacent and opposing teeth to make sure that they only treated the correct tooth without causing harm to adjacent teeth or surrounding tissues, as well as all the components of the tooth preparation and restoration itself. And here you see the criteria for the placement and cementation of the stainless steel crown on tooth J. So again, just looking at every component while managing also the overall care of the patient, managing tissues and adjacent teeth. Again, the restorative examination mirrors exactly the dental restorative examination and is taken at the same time and graded at the same time as dental candidates. So you have a class 2 preparation and restoration, class 3 preparation and restoration could be taken in either order. Candidates select which one, but they do need to complete one before starting the other, and they have 7 hours to complete both of those procedures. They do submit the preparation for evaluation, and then they restore that same tooth just like they would on a patient. And the same processes of modification requests are required for this examination. So all the same processes of demonstrating clinical judgment, management of the caries disease process, and making clinical decisions about what to treat and when to stop treatment, when to stop preparing a tooth, when it's time to restore, and then the ability to actually perform those skills as well. So that's all part of the restorative examination.
And Dr. Wall, I know you mentioned this, but I think it's important to say again too that this is happening at the same time that the dental students are doing their examination. So
exactly, and they're submitted to the grading area as if, and the evaluators, the graders, have no idea whether this is a dental therapy candidate or a dental candidate, and it's evaluated completely blind of that difference that could exist there. So we look at the anterior composite preparation. Again, the same criteria as the dental candidates are held to: external form, internal form, margin integrity, treatment management of the tissues, and so forth. Posterior, same thing, right? So we look at all the different criteria. We do have separate criteria for composite and amalgam. There are some slight differences in the preparation. So those are outlined specifically in the candidate section of our website where you can access all of the criteria and everything that's specific to each of those procedures. We do encourage students or candidates to bring these criteria sheets with them. We want to be completely transparent in how they're evaluated. Examiners do not give a personal opinion of what should pass and fail. They have to apply the criteria as published. So, and then candidates, if they are unsuccessful, they do get a review of what were the criteria that were considered to be critically deficient. But we want to be totally transparent about how these things are evaluated, and we do provide that to candidates, and examiners use those criteria. Are there any questions about the content criteria of the dental therapy examination before we move on to some review of the candidate performance and some statistics?
I don't have any in the chat. And again, we welcome you to unmute and ask questions if you have them. I would like to, after we give these results, I'm going to give a quick heads up to Danae that I would like to hear from her as a representative of the University of Minnesota to also give her feedback, because she's coming to this as an educator. And we do have many educators here today who joined us, as well as state board executive directors and some state board members participating. So Danae, this is your heads up that as soon as Sharon finishes her presentation, I'd love to get your input from an educator's perspective. As young as you look, I'm surprised you've been in this field as long as you have been. So, I mean, I can't wait to hear what you've got to say. But Dr. Wall, I'll let you and Sharon take it back over.
Sounds good. Yeah, and I'll turn it over to Sharon to present some of the statistical numbers that we've collected over the years. Go ahead, Sharon.
Great, thank you. So what I have done is that I'm going to be showing you results for combined over the past basically 6 years, from 2018 to 2023. So these are candidates who were graduates in those years, and there's still some that have to finish. The 2024 grads have started and taken some of those components of the exam, but still have to finish taking anterior and posterior restoration this year. Most of these candidates that are reflected in the data took all 6 sections. There's a few that took maybe all the clinical or just the OSCE, might be in process or just didn't finish for some reason, or different requirements in different states or something like that. I'm not completely sure. I do know that most of them hail from the Minnesota programs, although there is a small number from outside other programs. And just if you could go back one more second. So there's really uneven numbers through those years, and I think that has to do with different numbers of people in programs and different sizes of programs, and maybe the way they split up taking the different sections each year. So it looks a little haphazard, but we'll see. I think it's going to start evening out in the future as we get more and more candidates. So before I start with the OSCE, just 69 is not a lot of candidates, which is why we're combining them to show these results. But it seems to be most of the candidates. So even though it's a small number, it's a lot of dental therapy candidates. So we're excited about that. The dental therapy OSCE, great average score, initial passing percentage, 93%. That's awesome. Even the low score is not horrible. I mean, so this is really good performance for our OSCE. And you can see here, just broken down by the years, the bars on the right, the pale green bars, 2, 1, 0, very, very few failures over the years. For the pediatric procedures, you can see that the amalgam restorative procedure nobody has failed that. So that's unbelievable. It's great.
It's a good education. That is a good education.
That is great.
They're getting
and you can see we have these the errors contributing to failure here. So we had, again, very high pass rates, 94% and 92% for the pulpotomy and the stainless steel crown. But those errors contributing to failure, usually when we're presenting for hygiene or dental, we talk about the common errors. These are basically just the errors because there weren't many failures. There's still some similarities with what we see like in dental. This is not unlike what we see in dental. Some of these things.
I would speak to that, as well. I agree. These are very similar to what, when we present common errors that we see across the dental exam for the endodontic portion that they take, and the crown preparation portion. I mean, it's very, very similar, especially the endodontic portion. Perforation is always on the list for the dental component. But really, there's a small number of failures to even work with in this group. So these are the errors that we see, but it is very, very similar to what we see with dental candidates as well.
And can I add really quick, Sharon, between your data and Dr. Wall, your review of the data is that we are the largest organization testing these dental candidates. Why the numbers, right? Because the educational programs are small, it reflects that they're maxed out, but there just aren't a lot of programs. But CDCA Reb is primarily the exam administrator for these dental therapists.
Absolutely. If you look over the year, I mean, 2018, that we were right there at the beginning, and we've been testing consistently all the way throughout. And yeah, there's not another agency that can say that. So.
And again, just before you leave this one, very, very few failures. You can see that in the light blue fail columns. And then the anterior and posterior restorative procedures. The main reason for failure for the anterior, caries, that's exactly what we see on the dental exam. Same thing on the posterior, very similar results. And high pass rates. I mean, these are higher than the dental pass rates, I have to say. So very nice job, very nice. And very,
and again, I can't emphasize it enough. I mean, to speak at that high of a performance when the evaluators really don't know that these are dental therapy candidates, they're completely blind to that fact, and really it speaks to the education that these candidates are getting, and that they are performing at a high level, performing at a national standard level. Really speaks a lot to the preparation that they've been given. So yeah, I just wanted to speak to that.
Yeah, so hoping for more data soon.
So I'm going to, Danae, as queued up, right? I would love to hear your input as an educator. Danae did not know I was doing this. I have sent her a Venmo to say how wonderful I am. But other than that, Danae, can you give us just a little bit of insight on your program? Because we do have educators on this call who are interested in what you're doing at the University of Minnesota.
Yeah, of course. So we've been, the University of Minnesota program, like Christy said, has been around since 2009. So we've been educating dental therapists pretty much ever since legislation in Minnesota has passed. We've seen kind of the board examination process, or maybe I should say licensing. This examination change over the years through different organizations, and then finally making its way over to CDCA Reb CETA taking over. And it's been a really great experience working, I want to say, with your organization, especially since dental therapy was new. We were trying to figure out what's the best way to test our students' knowledge and, what's working, what's not working, etc. And I have to say, working with Stuart was wonderful. He was so receptive to any questions, concerns that we had, and then making sure that we helped create an exam that reflected what dental therapy or what dental therapists will do out in practice. So over the years, the exams kind of change, even input into like criteria for, the examination, because some of these were brand new procedures that we were testing the therapist on, like pulpotomies. That was never an examination before. So once we actually had our students do it, and then we did some some mock grading because we have our students do mock examinations. We were like, this criteria doesn't make sense. And then we would bring it back and be like, can you guys kind of review this and see if it does make sense? And sometimes he was like, oh, yep, that was kind of, we didn't think that through, or, we think this is what it should be like. So it's been, CDCA has been wonderful to work with over the years and making sure that we create a high quality exam that reflects what we expect our students to do, especially when they are going out into the real world practicing. So for our examination process for the University of Minnesota, our students take the kind of the pediatric portion of the examination, so the pulpotomy, SSC, in the fall semester. So what we have our students do is we have them do a mock examination, just like most schools probably do for their dental students. We set up a little seminar actually first that Drew Christensen, who's also on this call, helps greatly to set up and prepare for our students, where we go over all the criteria with our students. We kind of walk them through what the examination expects, what each thing means, what is a critical deficiency, what really they have to understand in order to pass the exam. Because we tell them that this is the manual, this is their Bible for passing the examination. Like, you have to know it, you have to know exactly what's gonna pass you, what's going to fail you, and then the exact measurements. When I took the exam when I was a student, I remember just highlighting all the little numbers, knowing what range I could be in order to not fail. So I just tell my students and encourage them to read through the manuals and understand each criteria. And if you don't understand it, ask questions. So we create that seminar day where we review all the procedures, and then we have our students practice. We give them sessions to practice for their exams. And then we also have a mock examination for them later on, where we time them very similarly to how the actual examination would be. And then we have our faculty, all of our faculty members, grade them and give them back to the students. And it's a great way for us as faculty as well to calibrate and make sure that we understand the exam and how the students should be completing the procedures.
Janae, I have a quick question. Can you tell me about enrollment numbers? Are from a dental therapy enrollment perspective, are you maxing out your availability? Are you finding these numbers increase?
At our program, we're kind of maxed out capacity-wise, because that has to do a lot with facilities. We're in the School of Dentistry, so if we wanted to add more students, faculty coverage-wise, we would definitely be able to add more students, but it's really facilities. It's hard to create space in a building that's already been created. So we've consistently been educating probably, 7 to 9 students per cohort for a while. During transition years, I think we've gone down to 6 when we've made big changes to our program. But enrollment wise, we've really been consistent with how many students that we accept to the program.
Well, and I would like to really quick ask those of you on the call, whether you're educators or executive directors, we have experts in all of these fields. Are there any questions? We've kind of entered that question and answer period. While we have, again, educators here, executive directors, are there any questions? I don't have any in the chat, so I'm assuming we have done the best job possible to answer any questions, right? We have come prepared, but I would like to open up the floor to any questions. I mean, truly, I knew this was going to be popular, but not quite as quiet. Danae, is there anything you'd like to add in closing remarks?
I don't believe so. I think, I really appreciate all the support that we get from CDCA, and then even just the creation of this, because dental therapy is small in the grand scheme of things. So I wasn't expecting something so big. So thank you so much for putting this on. But as we think about license portability, I think it's wonderful that we could potentially have this option of an exam that's nationwide, and having other programs utilize it. So thank you. Thanks everyone on here for making it happen and for supporting dental therapy as we grow.
Yes, and that is the truth. Thank you for supporting dental therapy, because that is what being on this call absolutely brings to the table. Whether you're here to learn more whether you're taking this recording to your board, as several questions in the chat of, will this be provided so we can provide it to our board? And absolutely it will. I hate to give everybody back an extra 15 minutes in their day, but would, Christy Jo, you were our guest, and our resident expert in this field, anything you would like to add or say to those on the call?
I just want to say thank you to everyone who is supporting dental therapy. Just to echo that, I constantly say whenever I get an opportunity to share dental therapy with people, I want all 50 states to have dental therapy before I die. And I'm not that young anymore. I'm already a grandmother. So we need to get on this. 14 states is not enough. And they keep telling me that I'm going to die in Hawaii, which is behind me. I'm going to climb Diamond Head again when I'm probably 150 to climb Diamond Head when it goes to all 50 states, but I'm doing it again.
Well, you can't be dying anytime soon. We plan to do a whole bunch more of these before that moment comes. So thank you all for participating today. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time. Your 15 minutes is back in your schedule. I also want to acknowledge some of our team members from our internal office, Amber, Tony, Stephanie, Alex. Thanks for being on the call today. It's wonderful to see you all. Everybody have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Great to be with you.